Hello, beautiful people, and welcome. In this video, we are going through some of the questions on our practice quiz. Now, keep in mind this video is specific to the questions. I encourage you to watch the review video for more in depth on how to do these questions on finding sides, finding different things. All right, let's go ahead and jump in with question number one. Now, question number one is asking you for the missing side. Note that there are no given angles. No angles are given. Also, no sides are congruent. And what that means is you do not have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. If we knew that two sides were congruent, then we can make that assumption. We cannot. This is not provided to us. Also not provided are any angles. So we cannot assume it is a special right triangle. It is just a right triangle. And because it is just a right triangle, you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. Which says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, when you're labeling a triangle, you have to make sure that C is your right angle and C is your hypotenuse. A and B doesn't really matter if you want to label which one's A, which one's B. Let's label this one A, this one B. So just make sure that you are labeling C as your hypotenuse. So A, we said was X, plus B, which we said was square root of 6, and C, which is the square root of 13. If you need to, type in that into your calculator. We have x squared plus 6 is equal to 13. Keep in mind there's a 2 index here, which is hidden. These 2's, they cancel out, they undo each other, so you're left with just 6 and 13. I'm going to subtract 6 both sides. X squared is equal to whatever 13 minus 6 is. I do believe that is 7. 13 minus 6, that is 7. We're going to take the square root both sides. X is then equal to 7. That is square root. Now, yes, when you are solving using a square root, I hesitated there for a second, you have to have a plus or a minus. So this means that you have x is equal to plus square root of 7 and x is equal to minus square root of 7. However, because we are talking about a distance, we're talking about the distance of x. What is the size of x? What is the length of x? That means that distance or measurement cannot be negative. So we're not including the negative answer. We are only including the positive answer. Question number 2 is asking us to state if this triangle is a right, obtuse, or an acute triangle. So in order to do that, you're going to set this up as if it were a Pythagorean theorem, which it is potentially not. We are saying a squared plus b squared. I'm going to put a box here because we don't know what goes in here, and c squared. I'm going to do a dotted line. We have to check which one's your longest side. So longest side, let's see what the square root of 57 is. Square root of 57 is about 7.5. So that means 11 is my longest side. So we have 11 squared. A, it doesn't matter which one's A. Let's make this A, square root of 57 squared plus 8 is our B squared. And I'm letting my calculator do the thinking for me. I have the square root of 57 squared plus 8 squared. And that's equal to 121. Then we do 11 squared, which is equal to 121. So because 121 is equal to 121, that means the triangle that we have is a right triangle. If C is greater than the summation, this is an obtuse triangle. And if C squared is less than the summation, that means you have an acute triangle. All right, next one. This one's asking us to solve for your x and your y's. When you are dealing with something that's given, for example, given is this 45 degree. That means this is special. We have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So 45 is here, 45 is here. When we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, that means the sides opposite those angles are congruent. So that means the sides opposite the angles, here's angle 45, are congruent. So opposite, congruent, opposite, congruent. So right off the bat, you know that y is equal to this mess. Now, the hypotenuse is always across the street from your right angle. So we have our hypotenuse there. Let's label our 45, 45, 90 triangle. We know that this is x, x, and x root 2. Let's label here. We have x, x, and x root 2. When you do this, when you label a triangle with your x, x, x root 2, you're going to notice that you're going to get some information out of that. For example, the information that we received is that we have x is equal to 3 times the square root of 2 divided by 2. So we need to find the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is equal to x times the square root of 2. We already know what x is. X is equal to 3 times the square root of 2 divided by 2. So now we're just going to bring down that square root and multiply. So we have 3 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 divided by 2, which means I'm going to go this way, which means we have 3 times the square root of 4 divided by 2, which means we have 3 times 2 divided by 2, which means we have 6 divided by 2, which means we have 3. So the hypotenuse, this side right here, is equal to 3. Now y is x, and we already know that x is equal to 3 square root of 2 divided by 2. Let's do one more. I'm going to shift this up. Again, they have given us something very special, and that is that we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So we know that this is x, and this one is equal to x times root 2. Now again, once you label, you can't see, once you label your triangle, you will get some information out. So for example, the information that I received is x times root 2, which is the hypotenuse, is equal to the square root of 3 divided by 3. Now we're going to divide by this root 2. Now I'm going to show you a trick that instead of dividing by square root of 2, I'm going to multiply by 1 divided by root 2. And I'm going to multiply by 1 divided by root 2. This is kind of the same as dividing by root 2, because what you end up is x times root 2 times 1 divided by root 2, and root 3 times 1 divided by 3 times root 2. So you can see that it is kind of dividing by root 2. It's just a little bit of a trick. Root 2 and root 2, they cancel out. 1 is just 1, so we have x left over. Root 3 times 1 is root 3. 3 times root 2 is 3 times root 2. One is inside the house, the other one is not. We cannot do anything. We do, however, need to rationalize the denominator. So you are multiplying by root 2, top and bottom. That means 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2, so we have 3 times the square root of 4. I'm going to shift that over for more space here. So we have root 6 divided by 3 times 2. I took the square root of 4, which means I have root 6 divided by 6. This here is your x value. So that means the x is root 6 over 6, and the y is root 6 over 6. Now for these examples, we're going to be doing the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So as always, mark up the triangle first. In a way, ignore the x and y's. Here, you're going to mark it up your own way. So across the street from your 30 degrees is always your x. That is the smallest side. Across the street from your right angle is your hypotenuse, which is 2x. And the long leg that's left over, that is x times root 3. Yes, this has an x. Yes, this has a y. We're going to ignore that. So now that you have labeled your triangle, you're going to end up seeing some sort of equation. And the equation that we see is this one here. I'm going to write this out. I got 14 times root 3 divided by 3, and that's equal to 2x. Now our objective, our goal is to get x by itself to solve for x. So we're going to use that trick again where instead of dividing, because we have a fraction here, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which means I'm going to multiply, I'm going to shift this out just a little bit so we can see better. I'm going to multiply by 1/2. So I am multiplying by the reciprocal of the number I need to get rid of. So if I have 2, the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2, so I'm multiplying by 1/2. So I'm going to multiply by 1/2 here. That means these 2's, they undo each other, they cancel out. We're left with x on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, we have 1 times 14 times 3, which is 14 root 3. And here we have 2 times 3, which is 6. Now, we will need to simplify this. 14 divided by 6. We know that 2 goes into 14. We know that 2 goes into 6. So we can simplify that into 7/3. So we have 7 and 3 because we are dividing by 2 on 14 and 16. We can't do anything with 3 because 3 is inside the house, and we can't do anything if they're inside the house. So we have 7/3 times root 3, and that's equal to your x value. So if we come back over here, that means x, I'm going to actually, so I don't accidentally think of something else, so I'm going to change it a little bit. I just scribbled those out. So that means x, this guy right here, this side is 7 root 3 divided by 3. That means that this long leg, here's your x, is 7 times root 3 divided by 3 times this root 3 that came from here. Let's go ahead and multiply. We have 7 times root 3 times root 3 divided by 3. Root 3 times root 3, that is root 9. The square root of 9 is 3. Oops. So if we take the square root of 9, we no longer need the square root. That's 3. So I'm going to divide by 3 since I now have a 3 on the numerator and a 3 in the denominator. They're not inside the house. They're not inside a radical. We can now simplify because we have multiplication. So we're left with just 7. So this long leg is just 7. So now we have our values. Now originally I believe this was y and this was x. But just keep in mind that the x and y's that the question gives you is not corresponding to the x that we have when we mark up the triangle. That means completely different. If it helps, I do encourage you to cross things out and just write it the way that we have in the previous questions. All right, let's do one more. This time they have given us a 60 degree. So 60 degrees, across the street from 60 degrees is our long leg, which is x times the square root of 3. That means this guy is 30 degrees. So across the street from 30 degrees is our x value, and across the street from 90 degrees is our 2 times x. And again, if it helps for you to cross these out, go ahead and do so. Now, since we know x is root 6 over 6, we're going to come in and replace x here and replace x here. So now we have 2 times the square root of 6 divided by 6, and we have the other one. So let's just work with this one first for the hypotenuse. 2 goes into 6 3 times. And so now we have root 6 over 3. This is your hypotenuse. Now for this one here, again, we need to multiply. Now this is a fraction. This is a whole number. So we need to, again, when I say whole number, I mean it's not an integer. It is not a fraction. That's what I mean by that. So we have root 6 times root 3 divided by 6 times 1, which is just 6. These two are inside the house, so we can multiply them. So we have the square root of 18 divided by 6. Now this square root of 18, I'm going to split that up one more time. Now I'm not going to split it up into 6 and 3. 6 is not a perfect square, 3 is not a perfect square. However, there is a secret perfect square inside of 18 that we can pull out, and that is 9. The square root of 9 I'm going to rewrite it one more time here. The square root of 9 is 3. So we have 3 times the square root of 2 divided by 6. And now we can simplify the 3 and the 6. 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 6 two times. So we have the square root of 2 divided by 2. And that is your long leg. All right, and so that was our 30, 60, 90 triangles, 2 examples on that. Now the next example we're going to do is a challenge example. So they have given us 2 triangles and they're asking us to solve the triangle. So it's kind of like having 2 separate ones, but they're attached. One thing to notice that they do have a shared side. So the hypotenuse of the 45 triangle is the long leg of the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So I'm going to take this 45 triangle first. I know that in a 45 triangle, we have 2 congruent sides. So if this side is 9, this side is 9. We also know that x root 2, forgot which triangle I was working with. This is x times the square root of 2 is your hypotenuse. So if we know that x, again, let's go ahead and mark this up. This is x, and this is x times root 2. So that means 9 root 2 is your hypotenuse for the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Now again, due to the reflexive property, these hypotenuse and the long leg are shared. So if we have 9 root 2 as our hypotenuse, the long leg, I'm going to draw out the 30, 60, 90 triangle. This long leg is also 9 root 2. Here's your x and here's your 2x for the 30, 60, 90 triangle. Now again, let's mark it up with what we know. We know that the leg across the street from the 30-degree angle is an x. We know that the hypotenuse is 2x. We know that the long leg is x times root 3. Now I have a 9 root 2, so that doesn't necessarily help us, and that's okay. So we're going to set up the equation now, and the equation is going to be this here. We have 9 times the square root of 2 is equal to x times the square root of 3. We want to solve for x, so we're going to divide both sides by the square root of 3. X is then equal to 9 times the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 3. Notice we have a square root of 3 in the denominator, which cannot happen. We have to rationalize. That means I'm going to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3. So we now have 9 times inside the house, so square root of 6 divided by 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. And we can simplify the 9 and the 3. We have 9 and 3. 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 9 three times. So we have 3 times the square root of 6 as our value for x. So we're going to bring that up. This is now 3 times the root 6 for x. And that means that now we know that x is 3 times the square root of 6. We can plug it in here and multiply it by 2. Again, 2 is outside and 3 is outside of the house. And again, the house is the radical. So that means outside can be combined as long as it's multiplication. And so we have 2 times 3 is 6. So we have 6 times root 6 as this side here. So let's go back into our original and mark everything up. So we have already indicated that the shared side is 9 root 2. This side here was 9. This side here, which was the hypotenuse of the 60, 90, 30 triangle, and that hypotenuse was 6 root 6, and the short leg was 3 root 6. Let's do one more like that. Again, 30, 60, 90, we have, now in this case here, they do not provide a 45 triangle. It's okay. We do have a shared side here. We have 2 30, 60, 90 triangles. Let's see if I can indicate what they are. So this is our first 30, 60, 90 triangle. We know that because this 30 degrees is given. That's in green. And then we have this pink one here. That's going to be our 30, 60 triangle for the second side. Now again, they do have that shared side, and turns out that's like the yellow-orange one here. So let's work with, oh, it doesn't really matter which one it is. I'm going to choose to work with the pink one first, just because. So this is 60 degrees, this is 90 degrees, that means this side's 30. They do give us this side right here, which is 5. I am happy about that because it is across the street from the 30 degrees, which means this is your x, hypotenuse is 2x, and this one is x times root 3. And if we know x, so here's our equation, right? If we know x, then we know that this guy is 5 root 3. We just plug in for x. And this is 2 times 5, which is 10. So I'm going to go back in here and mark things up. So if we have 5 here, the hypotenuse was 10. And the long leg, which is across the street from the 60, is 5 root 3. So 5 root 3. That means that in our secondary triangle, which is our green triangle, let's draw this out here. Here's our 30 degrees. That means that this right here is 5 root 3. Now, this is our hypotenuse. Across the street from the 30 is our x. So that means that this angle, the 60-degree angle, is our x times root 3, and our hypotenuse is 2x. Now notice we have our equation. Again, when we set that up, we have an equation, and that equation is 5 times root 3 is equal to x times root 3. And we are doing a happy dance because you'll notice that both sides have a root 3. So if we were to divide, and in this step you don't necessarily have to, you can just visually see that x is going to be 5. Now, if x is 5, that means we plug in 5 here, which means our hypotenuse is 10. Again, if you want to get rid of that x because it messes you up, that's okay. You can just mark it up. And then we have that the x, what did we say x was? X was 5. So it turns out that these triangles are exactly the same triangles. We have a 5, we have a 10, we have a 5 root 3 on both of them. All right, beautiful people, that is it for this video. This is going to be on your right triangle test. If you have any questions, please reach out, and good luck. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.